Hello, everybody. I am here. If anyone enters the room while I'm just getting a quick cup of coffee, um, hope you can hear me from all the way over here. Should be able to. Not that far away. And it usually takes time for people to come into my room, if anyone actually does come in. Um, although I would be very surprised, very angry, and very annoyed if I actually don't get anybody coming into this room to discuss this topic. Really, I would be. Most upsetting indeed. And so far, it looks like no one is going to come in to discuss this topic. Very upsetting indeed. Um, so, I need to sort of get rid of that, don't I? Yeah, I mean, I could just do that, yeah. We have one guest at least. That's a start. I was just saying for this one particular guest, I don't normally get many people coming onto my live streams on YouTube. There are many reasons for that, because I don't do it for the monetary value, and because I don't promote the monetary value, YouTube don't usually promote the videos. The other reason is normally I am debating Christianity and Islam, and this is absolutely, although it is connected very, very loosely with the topic of Christianity and Islam, in reality, it's not. And I went to 2 guests, and now I've gone down to 0. Isn't it amazing how everywhere I go at the moment, this is a discussion that everyone seems to be discussing. I've even heard Muslims say, and still trying to defend Islam over this subject, when in reality, this 40-year problem shouldn't really be involving any religion anymore. Whether it be Alu Akibar or the true God of the Bible, this problem shouldn't have any relevance on that whatsoever. It's a problem created by men. It's a problem perpetrated by men. It's a problem that's been allowed to continue by men. And it's not just a problem that involves just the perpetrators. It's a problem that involves our police, our judiciary, our government, and many, many other people are involved in this problem getting so out of hand. And of course, not just the police, the judiciary, and the courts, myself included, have also been a part of this problem, because we've known about people have spoken out about it, and they have ended up losing their jobs, getting silenced, or being imprisoned themselves. And whilst all this has been going on, the rest of us have been sitting back and doing nothing. And I've already done quite a few videos where I, state quite clearly the only thing for evil to flourish is for all the good people to sit back and do nothing. And this is a scenario exactly like that. These child grooming gangs have been allowed to flourish and been allowed to go from town to town to town to town because all the good people have sat back and done nothing. And the rest of the people who could have stopped it and should have stopped it, such as the police, the social services, the government, have refused to do so for the sake of diversity. And all the while, innocent children have been destroyed and unalived on a mass scale. It is rape, genocide. There's no two ways about it. The UK has been genocidal, raped. And again, where are all these thousands of people who have been marching this past year for the genocide of Gaza? Where are you all? Where are you all in your thousands marching for the genocide of the children of the UK, the same country you live in? Let me look out my window. Oh, I can't see none of you. See how hypocritical you are. Well, as usual, even though I've picked an extremely good topic to discuss, it looks like no one is ready to come forward and discuss this topic with me. No British person, no British parent, no Muslim person, no Muslim parent, no Pakistani man or woman. None of you wish to discuss this topic. I mean, sorry, but that amazes me. I mean, so far it's already been nearly 7 minutes that I've been sitting here. Two people came in and they run away rather quickly. One person has now come in again. For the amount of people talking about this subject and all the different views upon this subject, I would have expected a little bit more participation. As I say, I can understand when I'm doing streams that are to do with Christianity and Islam that the majority of the 65 million people in the UK don't want anything to do with that discussion and run away from it. But this is, as I've already said, is not about Christianity. This is also not about Islam, although that is involved slightly in the discussion. This is about the children of Great Britain being totally destroyed on a mass scale, not only by the perpetrators, but by the government, by the police, by the courts, and every single one of you 65 million people that's living in the UK should have views or thoughts or something to say upon this subject. And yet, it looks as though the answer to that is no. The majority of the 65 million people really don't give a shit. Wow, amazing, amazing. Well, I'm not going to stop discussing this. I mean, as I say, as a Christian, I would just as easy be able, to sit here and talk about the Bible and Christianity, and as I say, also Islam, seeing as I have a huge depth of knowledge of both subjects. But I thought, no, now is the time. This topic is now once again, and this is not the first time, but once again, it's out in the news and everyone's discussing it. So let's, for the next few streams at least, do the streams only on this particular topic. And I was quite certain that at least if I did that, the people would at least come in to discuss that topic. They don't when I do the Christianity and Islam streams, one or two people at the most. But I thought, well, at least if I do this stream on this topic, or at least I see it on other social media platforms and other social media sites, 50 to 100 to 200, sometimes into the thousands of people, 500 sometimes as well, listening and participating within the subject. I mean, I don't know. I don't know. I mean, am I such a scary, disgusting individual that no one wishes to come and discuss this subject with me? Is it my knowledge and depth of Islam that stops the Muslims from coming and discussing this subject with me? Hello, Paris. How are you? Yeah, no problem, Paris. Yeah, no problem. Um, whether I'm going to stay here that long or not, I don't know, because I was expecting a few more people to at least come in to discuss this subject. But as I said, I don't know whether it's me scaring everybody away. I can understand that the Muslims won't want to come into my room to discuss this subject, even though. Although it's mainly Pakistani Muslim gangs who are perpetrating this crime, and it's mainly British white children who they are subjugating for this crime. And again, although I'm fully aware that in Pakistan they did exactly the same thing. They did exactly the same thing in their own country in Pakistan to the Bangladesh community. They raped them into genocide. And they're doing exactly the same thing here. But of course, I mean, this goes further than just Islam because the police are implicit, the courts are implicit, the government is implicit. And of course, none of those people should be worrying about Islam or Christianity. And I don't think they are. Obviously, they're getting implicit because of the sake of diversity. And all these things need discussing. Not only do these things need discussion, but also what needs discussing, because I've seen, as I say, lots of different platforms, lots of different people discussing this, is no one is actually discussing what we do to stop this, because this is still happening. And it's no good people just sitting there and talking about it. It needs people to get out there on the street and stop these people from doing this. Now, if the courts and the police are not going to stop it, which they're clearly not going to do, and the government is not going to stop it, which they're clearly not going to do, then it needs the people to stop it. And there's one way that you can stop a man from hurting a child. It's very simple and it's very effective. And the point with it is that, you know, even if you are a Muslim or whatever you are, you know, you should be thoroughly disgusted and thoroughly abhor this act of what these people are doing to these young innocent children, regardless of your race, your creed, your colour, your religion. It shouldn't matter. The people, I mean, there are reported to be 65 million to 70 million people in the UK at the moment. 65 to 70 million. And I'm pretty certain that the people that are carrying out these attacks will more than likely not even add up to 1 million. Less than 1 million. That means that there are still over 60 million people that should be against this. And if those 60 million people took to the street, seriously, would the police, the government, and the courts still be able to ignore it and do nothing about it? No. No, they would not. Would the less than 1 million continue to grape and groom the children? No, they would not. So at the end of the day, we're all implicit. Each and every one of us, who have lived in the UK for the past 40 years, myself included, are all implicit in these Pakistani grape grooming gangs going round and doing this for the past 40 years. Every single one of us. We have all failed the children. We have all let the children down. And as I said, I don't care what your race or colour or creed or religion is. I really don't. If you've been in the UK for the past 40 years, you're also part of the problem. You're also part of the solution. You don't need a police force, you don't need a government, and you don't need a judiciary to stop the wrong and put the right in place of the wrong. You just need the mass of people to come forward and exercise that right. And I'm sure, as I said, from the 65 million people that are living in the UK, including Christians and including some Pakistani men as well, will be against this disgusting, abhorrent behaviour. These children have not only been mass groomed, these children have not only been mass raped and passed around like pieces of meat, a lot of them have been unalived. Some of them have been turned into kebabs. And yet we're just still here sitting and talking about this. While these men are still free to roam our streets and still free to pick more children, to mass groom, mass grape, and turn into kebabs. And as I've said as well, we do need to discuss the police's role in this. We do need to discuss the government's role in this. We do need to discuss the judiciary's role in this. Because just like every other single person, including myself, they've all turned a blind eye to it. And they've all allowed it to continue. There have been cases where fathers have tried to stop it happening. They've arrested the fathers. There have been cases where the children have run away to a safe house and they have come to the safe house, dragged the child out of the safe house and returned it to the people who are abusing the child. And again, the only reason why the police and the government and the judiciary is acting in that way and allowing the perpetrators to carry on perpetrating and allowing the victims to carry on being the victims is because we are all sitting back and doing nothing. I mean, you've all heard, I'm sure, the uproar in the House of Commons over this subject again. And again, it's not the first time the House of Commons has erupted over this subject. And again, they're just waffle and doing nothing. Okay, Paris, God bless you. Peace of Christ to you, sir. You know, how long do we have to sit here watching the governments? Yeah, I'm going to be shortly off to do the same thing, Paris. So God bless you, peace of Christ to you, sir. But that's not until about another 3 or 4 hours. But I won't be here for 3 or 4 hours if there's only 2 or 1 people within here, which it looks like there will be. It's no point. There's no point in me sitting here talking to myself. But I will be doing more streams on this subject, Paris. Don't worry. I will be doing a lot more streams over the next coming weeks on this subject because, again, that's another thing with it. The governments who are all implicit in this, and let's not, just put this at the Labour government's door, although they are the most complicit out of the governments in covering this up, the Labour government. It's also the Conservative government. It's also the Reform Party. It's any government that has been in that governmental building for the past 40 years who is involved in this cover-up. All of them, the whole lot of them, they're all involved. But Labour, as I say, more than anyone. They don't want this being talked about. They don't want this exposed, and they don't want it dealt with because it exposes their failures. This is why it needs people like me, people like you, and people like us to stand up and say, sod it. We don't need you, government, to sort this out because you're not going to, because you clearly are involved in it as much as the perpetrators are. We don't need you, police force, to sort this out. We will go and police it ourselves. We know who the majority of the perpetrators are. We know them. Let's go to their house, physically drag them out of their house, and physically give them the justice they deserve. And guess what? You wouldn't have to do it with every single perpetrator. By the time you'd done it with the first one, the police and the government would pull their fingers out of their arse and round the rest of them up and lock them away for their own safety. We also need to discuss why these people who have been caught for this, and why these people who have been handed prison sentences, sometimes up to 20 and 30 years, why they only served 4 or 5 years and then they were released. We also need to discuss why there were quite a few of those people who were caught, locked up, and were told once they were released, they would be deported, which is correct. They should be. Anyone who comes to a country and does this despicable thing against little children after their sentence, in fact, as far as I'm concerned, before their sentence, they should be kicked out. But again, I don't think there's anything wrong with locking them up for the time of their sentence and then kicking them out. But they must be booted out and made sure they never ever come back in again. And there have been many of them like that, and they haven't been deported. There are ones that were told they're going to be deported. They've served their sentence. They've been released. They're still living in this country, free, after serving their sentence, and they ain't been deported. Why? Again, that comes down to the government. And again, that is, something that needs to be discussed in full. As I say, throughout these 40 years, when this sort of first started happening, it was a Labour government. Tony Blair and Gordon Brown had 3 successive 4-year terms in power, and this was the start of the grooming scandals. Do you think they were unaware of this problem? No, they weren't. And I believe it was Gordon Brown who actually first sent out directives to the police forces telling them not to arrest the perpetrators for the sake of diversity. They were then replaced by the Conservative Party. Do you think they were unaware of the problem after Gordon Brown had already sent out directives before them telling the police force not to get involved? No. Because what happened? More and more people started coming forward to talk about it. More and more people started stepping forward to expose it. Every single one of them was shut down. Every single one of them was told to be quiet for the sake of diversity. This was during the Conservative Party's reign. You also have to remember that regardless of what government was in power in the main house, in the City of London, as I say, Labour at the start of these atrocities, Conservative at the time when they grew and grew and grew, probably at their fastest rate, the individual councils of these areas, Telford, Rochdale. Rochdale was where it first came to light then Telford, then Oldham, then Bradford. A lot of these independent councils were Labour run. They were run by Labour. Do you think they didn't know what was happening in their own town? Of course they did. And so throughout this atrocity, it's just a complete joke between Labour and Conservative. Although, as I say, Labour, as far as I'm concerned, are more to blame than Conservative because they run most of the local councils where it was happening. They were in power at the start of it happening and started the cover up. Conservative came along and carried on the cover up. At this same time, don't forget, the head of CPS, Public Prosecutions, was a one Keir Starmer, 2008 to 2013. Again, he would have been implicit in the cover-up that was done by the I think it was still then a Labour government. I'm pretty sure Tony Blair was still in power when he was head of CPS, because he's the one who prosecuted Tony Blair to get the illegal immigrants full rights and full welfare rights and full money from the welfare. And of course, we all know after the Conservatives got kicked out, we then replaced them with the current Labour government. The ban ends, Paris. I think it's sometime next week, but I have to be very careful because they've given me a final strike warning, because for some reason they added to my infringements an infringement that dates back to last April and an infringement that dates back to last October for some reason. And the one that dates back to last April, which obviously because it was well over a year ago, I don't even remember. That's the one that they gave me the strike warning for. And although I've written to them over and over and over and reported a problem over and over and over, why have you had it a strike to my account that occurred over a year ago now nearly, when according to your rules, any strike after 90 days is wiped clean? And they haven't responded. So I do believe that if I were to go back to TikTok, it wouldn't take very long for them to ban me, and then the account would get suspended again completely. Yeah, it is typical TikTok, Paris. Yes, it is. It is typical TikTok. And that is again the Muslims. You've got to thank the Muslims for that, because they're the ones who, just like the present Labour government, want free speech totally banned, because they have a lot of things to hide. Anybody who doesn't want you, to openly talk about something and to openly have free speech about something, straight away they've got something to hide. And unfortunately, the Muslims are definitely in that park. They don't want anybody to have free speech, and to have to openly talk about Allah and to openly talk about Muhammad and to openly talk about the Quran, because it exposes exactly how false it is. And unfortunately, the Labour government that we now have are also exactly the same. They don't want anyone having free speech at this moment in time. And it's all to do with my topic tonight, because they are, as I say, even more implicit in covering up this scandal than the Conservative Party are. The Conservative Party, as I say, also played along with it while they were in power. But they're not, I don't think, to blame as much as the Labour Party are for this huge cover-up. As I say, all of them are in, because all of them agreed that for the sake of diversity, and for the sake of making sure that multiculturalism was working, and for the sake of everyone believing that Islam can reside peacefully in a country like the UK, that's why the top officials in the government wanted to cover this up. It's not the only reason, as I say. I mean, there are other, for instance, I've already touched on how the majority of the local councils at that time were Labour run. Okay, Oldham, Rochdale, Rotherham, all of them were Labour run. Isn't it a surprise how a government, local councils and local towns run by Labour, and they are supporting the Muslims in allowing them to carry on mass grape grooming little children, and then they end up in power with the majority of votes. Isn't that surprising? When everyone else has totally lost faith with all the politicians, Labour and Conservative. How did Labour win the last election when 60% of the people didn't even bother to vote because they were so disgusted with both parties? How did Labour manage to win by such a huge majority and such a huge landslide? Because of the child grape grooming scandal. This is another thing that needs discussing. This is something I'm not hearing anyone else discuss. you know, and it needs to be start to talked about. Labour were implicit in covering this scandal up while Conservatives were in power, for the not just for the sake of diversity, not just for the sake of multiculturalism, but also because they wanted to get in power. They literally sold the souls of little tiny children so they could get in power. And what are they doing now they're in power? Trying to shut anyone down who wants to talk about it. 364 Labour councillors voted against a national inquiry. Why so many? Why so many Labour councillors? 364 of you, did you vote against it? What have you got to hide? What closet do you wish to keep shut so no one knows that you were involved in helping disgusting, sick individuals grape little children so that you could get your top well-paid job in power, so you could get your blood money? Another thing I've only heard one person start to talk about: the blood money of Keir Starmer, the blood money of Angela Rayner, the blood money of Jess Phillips, the blood money of 364 Labour councillors who voted against the national inquiry. Your wages are literally blood money for where you covered up year after year after year Pakistani mass grooming gangs. And what am I hearing you now say? Oh, it's no good having another inquiry, another inquiry, another. It's time for action. Where's your action? Where is it? Within weeks, you rounded up people waving placards and put social media posts out and had them in prison for 7 years within weeks. Where is your action against the mass grape grooming gangs who voted you in power for allowing them to continue mass grape grooming? I know where it is exactly. We'll never ever see it happen. Yes, Jesus is truth. They did ban me on TikTok. They banned me on TikTok, Jesus is truth, because when you have somebody like myself who wishes to only talk the truth and expose the truth and not do it for any monetary gain, TikTok's not interested in that. If I was exactly the same way I am now, and I pushed all my monetary gain on TikTok, made people subscribe, made people, donate and give me plenty of gifts, TikTok would stop banning me. And I already know that to be the case because of other people that I see, who use the. It's the same with this channel's no different. If I was to do super chat on this channel, which is something that they push for a lot, and again, whenever someone gives you a donation through super chat upon this site, YouTube take a certain percentage of that immediately. So that's one way that you earn thousands for YouTube, by doing super chats. You also then obviously have the adverts. I mean, I don't know whether I've put the adverts on or off. I wouldn't know how to. If I could, I would switch the adverts off. But again, if you leave the adverts on, if you do super chat, and if you get people to subscribe to your channel, tell them please subscribe to my channel, and I know you can set it up where they can pay you a certain amount in subscriptions each month, and then you give them certain benefits for all of those subscriptions. If you do all of that, YouTube will promote you. YouTube will make sure that anyone who comes onto the site, one of the first things they see is your channel. So when you go live, you end up getting 3,000, 4,000, 5,000 people watching every single live. It's not because of you. The people are not coming in their thousands to watch and listen to you. It's because you earn thousands and thousands of dollars for YouTube. And so YouTube makes sure they promote it to everybody. And that's why thousands and thousands come to watch you. And that's why when you see people like myself, where only 2 people come to watch it and only 30 or 40 people watch the finished video, again, instead of thousands, it's because I don't do super chats. It's because I don't want adverts. It's because I don't want subscriptions where all the money goes to YouTube. I'm not interested in the money. I got my own money. I don't need any of your money. I have Jesus Christ. He gives me my money. And because of that, YouTube won't promote it. So even when I then sit here and I do a subject like this, which is nothing to do with Christianity or Islam, let's face it, it's to do with anyone who has any morals or any good views or things that is living in the UK today. This is something that everybody, again, as I say, regardless of race, regardless of creed, regardless of religion, everybody should wish to start to discuss and start to talk about, because it's been an ongoing problem for over 40 years. The police have overlooked it, the government have overlooked it, the judiciary have overlooked it, and in the meantime, thousands and thousands and thousands of little, small, tiny children are being destroyed by filth. And as I say, I shouldn't need YouTube to promote this for people to come in and discuss it. There should be no need for that. I don't believe so, Paris. I mean, I don't know, as I say, how to switch them on or how to switch them off. But I believe that in order for you to have the adverts, you need to switch them on. And if you don't, then you don't have adverts. As I say, I don't know. If it's a case where you need to switch them off for you not to have them, I would switch them off. That's the point I'm trying to say. Because I would switch the adverts off, because I don't have super chat, because I don't ask people to subscribe to my channel. That's how YouTube makes their money. See, it's different on each site. TikTok, again, is different from that. They don't have super chat on TikTok. As far as I'm aware, it's only YouTube that has super chat. And on super chat, people can donate to you through super chat either $1 or billions of dollars. And as I say, whatever the donation is on that super chat, YouTube take a percentage of that. And I have seen, as I say, certain channels on that site where people quite happily and regularly donate $100 through super chat. And again, as I say, you usually find those are the channels where you get thousands and thousands of people. And as I say, I wouldn't do that. I would never go down that road just to get the viewers. But as I say, I mean, I can understand when I'm talking about Christianity and Islam that the viewers would stay low. I can understand that, I mean, that's when you're discussing those sorts of subjects and you're not using worldly means to try to promote it, which would be through money. So you're just relying on spiritual means for it to be promoted. It is entirely down to the spirits of good or bad as to whether you're, successful or not. And I'm happy to leave that to the spirits to decide that. If the spirits decide I should only have a few people come and listen to me talk about Christianity and Islam, great, that's fine. I haven't got a problem with that, because as far as I'm concerned, as I say, my Lord and Savior Jesus Christ is involved in that decision. And if he's, as I say, the one who's deciding I shouldn't have many, brilliant. I'm happy to go along with that, because he is my master. I am his slave. It's not the other way round. But as I say, when it comes to me then not having anything to do, as I say, with Christianity or Islam, although the child grooming scandal is loosely related to Islam in a way, because it is mainly Pakistani Muslims who are committing the crime, and it is mainly British white girls who they are committing it against, and there are a lot of Sunnah which is the words of the Prophet Muhammad, who tell them to do this. Muhammad specifically tells Muslims to go out and grape and unalive the little children if they are from them. And what he means when he says from them, he means non-Muslim. And there are thousands of hadiths where Muhammad said this. Bukhari, Muslim, Abu Dawood, Tirmidhi. I could, as I say, bring thousands forward where Muhammad said it over and over. If the women and children are from them, in other words, non-Muslim, grape them, rape them, rob them, beat them, and unalive them. So, you know, it is loosely connected to Islam to begin with, but it's not only to do with it, as I say, because these people would not be able to do this unless they were helped to do it by the rulers of the country. Can you imagine thousands and thousands of Britons going to Saudi Arabia and raping thousands and thousands of Muslim girls? Can you imagine anyone from any other country going into another country and doing this and getting away with it? It would never, ever happen. And yet it's happening in this country. And this, as I say, is another reason why it needs to be discussed, because no one's discussing that part in depth. That's the problem with it. Many people are discussing the Islamic narrative part in depth. You know, many people are discussing the fact that it's mainly Pakistani men against British white girls. And that is not, that's the wrong discussion to have on this topic. The correct discussion to have on this topic is why are the police, the government and the judiciary not stopping it? Why are they allowing it to happen? Why are they allowing them to do it? And there's a clear reason why. When you understand Islam, you know, and you understand how they spread this false cult, you can quite clearly see why the government and the police are allowing it to happen. Because there are two ways that Islam is spread. One of those ways is currently what's happening with the mass child grooming gangs. They do it through rape. They cause literally genocide through rape. They did it in their own country, Pakistan, with the Bangladesh community. They literally wiped out the Bangladesh community by raping their children. On such a scale, it wiped them out. And they're doing exactly the same thing in this country. And they're being allowed to do it. Why? Because if they don't do that, they have to do the other method of genocide, which is the London Underground, which is the Manchester Arena, which is Lockerbie. And the government know this, the police know this, the courts know this. Why have they chosen to allow them to do the graping style instead of the bombing style? Because they might get caught up one day in one of the bombs, that's why. They know their children ain't never going to get caught up in the graping because they're mixing in different circles. Their children don't go to kebab shops. Their children don't go to the local 7-Eleven. Yes, exactly, Jesus is truth. Wow, exactly. When you start to understand the truth, when you start to understand what exactly is happening, it is wow. And as I say, this needs to be discussed. Well, that's up to you, Paris. I mean, if you have the means and the rights to move out of the UK, then by also do so. But where are you going to go to? You know, exactly where are you going to go to where this problem doesn't exist? You've got maybe Korea, maybe China, possibly parts of Russia, and possibly parts of the USA that you could move to where this problem doesn't exist. But Will that mean that that problem will never ever reach those areas? No, because after it's reached here and over, it will then move to those areas and do exactly the same in those areas. So, running away from a problem is not the solution, because the problem is only going to follow you and eventually catch you up. And eventually you are going to have to make a stand against that problem to stop it. And it's also not really a solution to the thousands and thousands and thousands of little children who are going to suffer and who are still suffering. Even as I speak now, there are still thousands and thousands of children in the UK who are being taken out in taxis, being given kebabs, being given alcohol, being given other certain substances, and then used as a piece of meat by several different men. And it's going to continue because, like I say, that's how Islam spreads. Islam spreads either by the sword or by the willy. And as I say, in the UK at the moment, instead of it spreading by the sword, they're spreading it by their willy. And they're being allowed to do so, as I say. And this is why people need to discuss this. It's not, why it is happening. It needs to be stopped. That's true. That needs to be discussed as well. But what also needs to be discussed is, why did our leaders, why did our protectors, the police, the government and the courts, allow them to spread this by the willy instead of the sword? Why? This is what, people need to start asking to Keir Starmer. This is what people need to start asking to Angela Rayner. This is what people need to start asking to Jess Phillips, especially women. Why did you allow disgusting, filthy men to spread their disgusting filth using their willy instead of a sword? In fact, why did you even allow them to spread it in the first place? Again, that comes down to, as I say, to the fact of diversity, and also, as I say, for the fact that they didn't want, a mass outbreak of, just basically all out civil war. Sadly, without something happening, and without people doing, I think that's exactly where it's going to be leading to anyway. I really do. And yet, as I say, there's so many more things to discuss with this, that people are unaware with, yeah, it is sad. Jesus is truth. When did it start? Basically, it started, I think Rochdale was the first time that it came to the attention of people, and that was early 2000, late 1990, early 2000. But I believe that even when it sort of came out in Rochdale, it had obviously started way before that. I believe this has been going on since at least the early 1990s. And of course, once it started, it was only on such a small scale, and it only involved certain children. They made sure when they started to do this that they chose children who are neglected. They chose children who were from broken homes. They chose children who were already in the care system, because they knew that way no one would even notice what was happening to these children. It wasn't as it, until it went on and on and on for a number of years that, of course, then they started to choose children who did have parents. They did start to choose children where it would be noticed what was happening to these children. But again, as I say, for the sake of diversity and the sake of multiculturalism, because they were realizing that the majority of these cases that they were now getting forward were between mainly Pakistani Muslim men, and the majority of the victims were mainly British white girls. They decided from then, we can't have this coming out. We can't have this, being known about by the masses. And again, because it wasn't such a huge problem then as well, it was still only in one town, Rochdale. It didn't involve um, 500,000 children as it does nowadays, although their official figures are only 250,000. I think they're well short of the mark there. I think it's at least 500,000 children. Um, Again, because of the figures and the only one, they decided, yeah, okay, we can cover this, and we can stop everyone knowing that this is happening, and we can cover it up and hide it all under the carpet. Of course, uh, I don't think at that stage they were fully aware of um, the genocide of rape in Islam. I don't believe they realized that was an actual thing back then, that there was such a thing as genocide by rape. And of course, there is. As I say, it happened in Pakistan with the Hindu Bangladeshi community. The Muslims in Pakistan actually genocided the Bangladeshi Hindus by raping all their children. And of course, once they were then at such a low number and they were then at such a high number, that's when the sword comes out and they finish the remainder off by sword. And it will be no difference in this country. There will be no difference in this country. Once they've finished genociding all the British white children, so there are no more British left, because obviously they're the ones who keep repopulating that particular society. So once they've got rid of all the British children, they're not being repopulated, they're still repopulating. They become the larger majority quicker. You see? So instead of them being the larger majority within 10 years, they become the larger majority within 3 or 4 years. That's when the sword comes out and they finish the rest off with the sword. And it's exactly the same thing, as I said, that they did in Pakistan with the Hindu Bangladeshi community. And it's exactly the same thing that's happening here. Exactly the same. Just like in Pakistan, they also had the backing of the police, the backing of the government, the backing of the judiciary. Well, the current figures today, Jesus is Truth, is between 7 to 10%. Again, personally, I think that is a very watered down figure. I think you'll find it's more likely 20 to 30%. And as I say, if current trends continue where this mass grooming is continuing, I think within 4 or 5 years, they will be the majority and everyone else will be the minority. And as I say, that's when the sword will come out then. Jesus is Truth. That is, again, as I say, one solution. You could go there and probably, as I say, for the rest of your life, live in peace in the USA without the problem, arising. But eventually, it will also be in the USA, and the USA will also have this same problem. Once they've taken over Europe, once they've taken over the UK, which looks like on current trends, as I say, is going to happen within the next 5 to 10 years, the next thing they're going to concentrate on is the USA. They're already on USA, and they've already taken over a lot of the areas in USA, and it won't take them long. It won't take them long to take the USA. Believe me, I don't think so. Yeah, they have already taken France. Yeah, France is gone, and so is Germany. So is really Holland, really as well. And as I say, the UK is not far behind. The way that we've allowed them to do their mass genocide, and the way that we've allowed them to parade our streets for the past year, talking about the mass genocide in Gaza, and yet no one has, talked about the mass genocide of the children in our own country. We've only got ourselves to blame. We really have. We've only got ourselves to blame. And even now, as I say, with more and more people discussing this subject, more and more people talking about how this disgusting thing should never have happened in the first place, still people are not doing the correct thing that needs to be done to stop it. Because in order to stop this, and in order for this to be even slightly reversed, is that definitely, without a doubt, every single Pakistani Muslim should be kicked out of this country now, today, without a doubt. They should all be ejected back to Pakistan, and not one single Pakistani person should be allowed to ever enter this country again. That should be the first thing that happens. Of course, then the next thing is to start protecting the children, and also, as I say, we need new laws because the old laws are not good enough to deal with this problem. The old laws are just not cut to deal with this problem. We need a new law in this country. And the new law, as I say, needs to involve um, the two types of genocide that Islam uses against the indigenous population. So, as I say, the one side is genocidal rape, the other side is the sword. We need new laws to state, exactly any Muslim, any Muslim in this country that is either involved in it, is either caught even thinking about it, is any sort of way, whatever, they are immediately again ejected from this country. Immediately, you know, kick them out and don't allow them back in. The mosques, the mosques, which are now no longer called mosques, they are now called Islamic centres. Because 30 years ago, Adam Chowdhury and Finsbury Park Mosque, everybody realised when Lee Rigby happened that that happened from the Finsbury Park Mosque. They were teaching it in the mosques, which they do. So since then, they no longer call them mosques. No one's noticed that. They are now called Islamic centres. They all need to be thoroughly investigated and they need to be policed to see exactly what they're teaching. Because a lot of this genocidal rape and a lot of this genocidal thing from the sword starts in the Islamic centres. It starts in the mosque. Large groups of people meeting together and planning how they're going to go about mass grooming children, how they're going to go about London Underground and other such atrocities. And as I say, we need all of these things to happen. And unfortunately, again, in order to get these and get these passed, these new laws, it needs the government. And guess what? Our current Labour government are not going to do it because they got where they are because of the Muslims. So the last thing they're going to do is pass bills that go against the Muslims from taking over the whole country. And as I say, there needs to be people not just like myself, because I'm not the only one. I am not the only one in this country who knows and understands this problem. No way am I. There are many other people in this country who know and understand this problem, and they are not all white British Christians like me. There are some of them who are Muslim. They are Pakistani Muslim. They are Indian Muslim. They are Asian Muslim. But again, they understand the problem because they know about it from their own country. They know about it from their own religion. They know about it from their own teaching. They know about it from the fact that they know about these mosques, the ones that teach the hate, the ones that teach the overtaking of the country, the ones that teach the genocide. They know about it. But just like everyone else, They're too scared to speak about it. Why? Because they live right in the heart of the community where it's happening. And they're just as disgusted about it as everyone else. That's the point with it. These innocent Muslims are just as disgusted at the way the Muslims are acting as anyone else. And guess what happens when it does all kick off? It's not the ones who are guilty of the crimes who's going to be, caught out, and it'll be the innocent ones. The innocent ones who are just as disgusted about it, they're the ones who are going to suffer. Leather Goddess, I've been banned again from TikTok. Yeah, thank you, Jesus Truth. Hopefully, I will be back on TikTok next week. But if I do go back again, I will have to be extremely careful about what I say and how I behave, because I now am on a final warning completely, because they decided to add to my account 2 violations, one from last April. And that's where the strike warning came from, a violation that I committed last April, 9 months ago. What happened to their 90-day and the ban is totally disappears and off your record completely? I don't know, because 9 months is a lot more than 90 days. And although I've written to them and pointed this out to them, they haven't responded, which doesn't surprise me. TikTok very rarely do respond. I think TikTok only respond, just like most other social media sites, when you make them large amounts of money, and I don't make them a penny, so it's not surprising that they haven't responded to me. But yeah, I mean, going back to the problem, the topic, this is, I mean, unless more people like myself, start to discuss this, more people with in-depth knowledge of not only Islam, because as I say, you don't only need to understand Islam to understand this problem. You also need to understand our courts, our judiciary, and our police and our governments to understand this problem, because they're all involved, every single one of them. And you can't say our police are Islam, although a lot of people would disagree with me there. I think the majority of them already are. But certainly, they're not supposed to be. They're still supposed to be upholding and using UK law. The court's the same and the government the same. But again, especially with the government, there is a huge argument that the government is already Muslim. I already truly believe that. Our government is already a Muslim government. They're just hiding it, just like they've hidden the child grooming scandal. I believe they already are a Muslim government, especially Labour. As I say, Conservative, not so much yet, but I think Conservative are sort of maybe going to come to the conclusion pretty soon that unless they go full Muslim like Labour have, they'll never ever get back in power again. Because I do think that if it's not a Muslim government after this Labour one, which I think is very, very possible, then Labour will get back in again using the Muslim vote again. That's why they're allowing thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of illegal immigrants still to come in by boat, because the majority of those illegal immigrants are all Muslim. Um, and this is why, as I say, that Labour have definitely, covered it up. And I also think in part it's why the Conservatives have never really stepped forward to stop it or expose it, which of course they could have quite easily done while they were in power. They never ever did, because I think they realised they were already hugely in trouble with regaining power. And I think they realised that if they did come out against it, how they are now, they knew they would never ever get back into power. And so I think they sort of thought, well, if we just allow it to happen and not speak about it, maybe there's a chance we might get back into power again. Either way, this is why the government have hidden it. It's not so much just for the sake of diversity. It's not just so much for the sake of multiculturalism. The reason why the governments have hidden it up is because they want to get into power. They want to be the government ruling the country. They want to be the government in power, and making the decisions. And as I say, they've understood and realized if they allow these Muslims to do this, if they allow these Muslims to carry on this genocide of British white children, which, as I say, doesn't affect them or their children in any way, that they will get voted in. And that's exactly what's happened. That's exactly what has happened. Labour got into the power by the majority of the vote because of the Muslim vote in Oldham, because of the Muslim vote in Rochdale, because of the Muslim vote in Rotherham, because of the Muslim vote in Telford, because of the Muslim vote in all these towns and cities where they have turned a blind eye to child rape grooming gangs, and not only turned a blind eye to it, but also instructed the police not to stop it, not to prosecute, to do nothing, while these men systematically grape white children. That's why they are now in power. They brought their vote from the Muslims by allowing 500,000 children to be destroyed. And as I say, Conservatives are no better. Don't think reform, don't think that silly idiot Farage is any different. They ain't. None of them are any different. They all know. They all know about this problem. They all know exactly what Labour did. They all know what the police are doing. They all know what the courts are doing. They all know that the courts are locking up people 7 years for posting something on social media and giving a 15-month suspended sentence for someone who grapes a little child. They all know. Especially our current leader, Tuti Kia, who was a lawyer. All of them, the whole lot of them. This is another reason why it's totally pointless to ask for another inquiry. Because who's going to be doing the inquiry? The politicians who have covered it up for the past 40 years. They're going to be doing the inquiry on themselves. Do you really expect them to come forward and say, oh, yes, we all covered it up for years, and the reasons why they... Please, people, get real. Oh, Lord of mercy. Lord of mercy. As I say, although this problem involves the government, although this problem involves the police, although this problem involves the courts, and obviously, although this problem involves the perpetrators, who are mainly Pakistani Muslim men, that is still just a tiny, tiny proportion of the 65 million population. And yes, they may have supporters and sympathisers who are not taking part in it, but still support and sympathise with them because they're Muslim. Yes, there may be another 7,000, 8,000, 9,000, possibly 10,000, possibly even, as I say, a million and a half who will support them, but not directly involved in this disgusting, sick acts. Even if you take it to 3 million, that's still a small, tiny proportion of the 65 million population. And so what it needs is the remaining 60 million who are totally against this, whether you're Muslim, Christian, Buddhist, Sikh, atheist, Chinese, Japanese, Jew, German, French, British. If you are against children being totally destroyed for the sake of Aluri Akbar, then it needs all 60 million to stand up, and every single one of those 60 million to start going out on the streets and bringing this country to its knees. That way, the problem's going to get sorted out. Or we could do what we've done for the past 40 years, sit back and do nothing. And the problem's not going to be sorted. It's just going to get worse and worse and worse. And guess what? Next time, it's going to be your child who's in the back of the taxi, regardless of whether they're white or not, regardless of whether they're Asian or not, regardless of what colour they are. Because that's the thing with these people who are perpetrating these crimes. Even their own children are being abused. They will abuse their own children. Do you think your child is safe just because you're a Muslim? Keep thinking that. Keep praying and banging your head on the floor to Allahu Akbar. I guarantee eventually your child's going to end up in the back of the taxi. I mean, I must admit, I'm still disappointed that this being the first broadcast, I still only ended up with 3 people. The maximum was 4. That's something that I was hoping I would get at least double figures, if not at least 10 or 11. Obviously, as I say, I will be doing more of these lives over the next few weeks. Because, as I say, I need to start doing these more and staying away from TikTok, at least until possibly they remove that strike warning, if they ever do. And of course, it's very difficult to do this subject on TikTok without getting banned. You more than likely will end up getting a ban on TikTok if you discuss this subject. Whereas on this platform, you can discuss it more openly, more freely without getting banned. So I think over the next few weeks, I will continue to do this on this stream, hopefully get more people in here to discuss this, hopefully get more people in here, to give their views on it, hopefully get more people who have knowledge of this subject, because the people are there. There are the people out there who have the knowledge of this. There are the people out there who know exactly what's been going on. And as I say, just like everyone else, they're too scared to speak about it. Why? Because the majority of the 60 million are sitting back and doing nothing. That's why. If they knew the majority of the 60 million were behind them, every single one of them would come forward and speak about it, and we would all know the truth. Again, I don't care what creed you are, what religion you are, what background you are, or what colour you are. Don't you want to know the truth? And again, possibly there are many people out there who don't want to know the truth, because they already have a slight inkling of the truth and they are scared of the truth. And again, there are many people, as I say, such as Tutu Kier, Angela Rayner, Jess Phillips, Andy Burnham, many others who were implicit in it, who are scared, definitely, of the truth. And if nothing else, as I say, if we don't even just stop this, let's just at least expose the truth. Let's at least do that. Again, which would happen if 60 million people did start to discuss it openly. What's the government going to do? Are the government going to lock up 60 million people? Come on, get real. They can't even afford to lock up 2 people at the moment. Never mind 60 million. Anyway, I'm going to have to leave it there, folks, because it's getting late. I'm going to have to go and get ready to go and earn lots of money. Um, As I say, hopefully I'm going to be back live at the weekend on this platform doing the same subject. Hopefully more people are going to join. This is going to be staying up there for people to view. Hopefully they'll view it and then they'll come and join over the weekend to discuss it more better and in more detail. As I say, at the end of the day, again, even if we sit back and do nothing, I think at least um, we at least need to keep talking about this and keep talking about this and keep talking about this. Um, I'd like to sort of, as I say, at least hope that we could at least do more than that to save the children, but at least continuing to talk about it so that it doesn't die out and go away and creep back into the shadows where it has been for the majority of the 40 years. Again, hopefully we can still at least bring about some sort of change by at least continuing to discuss it. God bless you all. Peace of Christ to you all. Um, well, my band ends next week, Paris. But as I say, I don't think I'm going to go straight back to TikTok, to be honest with you, because I think they're just waiting now. By them adding that ban from last April to give me a strike warning proves that they are just waiting for me to go straight back on there, say the first wrong word, and they will ban me immediately, and it will be a permanent ban. I believe that's exactly what they're hoping to happen and hoping to do. And as I say, that's exactly what they will do. So I think I will stay off TikTok for a while, wait until the strike warning goes, which hopefully eventually it will do. We'll see where we go. As I say, until then, I'm going to keep doing this channel, try and get this channel promoted more. It's not going to be easy, as I say, because I don't do it through the money, which is what YouTube would rather me do. But I'm pretty certain, even without doing it for the money, there must still be a way of getting it promoted. There are other people who I've noticed who got their videos and channels promoted on YouTube without still using the super chat and the subscriptions and other sorts of means. So it is still possible to do, but we'll see. Anyway, all right. God bless you all. Peace of Christ to you all. See you on the next live stream weekend.